Welcome to Intersections, an Avondale Originals podcast. Bringing together the most intriguing people, from entrepreneurs to explorers, we dive in to find their common intersections and provoke elevated conversations. Follow along as we discuss life, business, fast cars, and everything in between. In this episode of Intersections, two close friends, Nastia Liukin and Noora Bass, meet on a beautiful day in the bustling city at the historic Adolphus Hotel to catch up on life, share pivotal moments, drive dream cars, and discuss how success has evolved over their many careers. Their conversations, stories, and backgrounds are quite different, but they share many commonalities, such as their ability to overcome adversity in pursuit of the other side of fear. The vehicles featured in this episode are two iconic luxury SUVs, the Mercedes-Benz G550 or G-Wagon and the Aston Martin DBX, courtesy of Avondale Dealerships.
Oh, that was fun.
So how was that your dream car?
Yes.
Like, you have been talking about that for so long.
I know. And also the dream car maybe you never knew you needed.
Yeah, I mean, that was the smoothest drive. Like, I could, be in it. I mean, want to go to Vegas? We can hop in right now. Like, that
Road
was
trip?
Incredible. Yeah, I mean.
You looked pretty good too.
Thank you. Well, you looked great.
I'm so glad Avondale brought us together. And I remember one of the many times, obviously, that you have been to my house, I noticed that you pulled up in another new car. I was like, hold on a second.
You're like, what's going on?
Yeah, but I literally said that. And it was so cool hearing about it before I ever had any idea about it.
Literally the easiest program. I mean, concierge service, drop off, change out anytime you want.
Very much you.
Say no more. Yes, life is busy. You got it? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Throw me the keys and I'm done. So it's awesome.
No, and I remember thinking wait a second, this seems almost too easy. But you're right, with a lifestyle that you have and I have, and just everybody, the convenience of it is just, I don't know why it didn't exist before and why I didn't know more about it. But I think one of the craziest things about our friendship and our relationship is we have lived in, so LA,
Boston.
New York, Boston, and now here. And we never met until we got to Dallas. And I think
same area in LA, same area in New York, and
the same friend group in Boston, essentially. It was so crazy. And I think that's one of the coolest things about Dallas. And we talk about this all the time, but it's just, first of all, it's a melting pot, I think. Yeah. And it just brings some of the most incredible people together that are so driven and so motivated, yet have the kindest souls and hearts. I don't know about you, I didn't feel that way in other cities. And I think for me, living in Dallas, essentially my whole life, and then experiencing all of that and then coming back again, it makes you just appreciate so much. Right. And especially, it's you are no stranger to hard work. And for me, both my parents were gymnasts, and so I remember everybody constantly telling me, especially I'm the only child, they were like, you're gonna be good. And I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I have a little bit of gymnastics in my blood and some good genes, I guess, but it wasn't, talent is just the bare minimum of what it takes to be successful in anything that you wanna do. And I think it's the hard work, really. And for you too, you have to, go out there and you're meeting people that you're trying to essentially help start the next chapter of their life. Right. And it's been a transition for you, but it's also transitions for them. It's scary and it's daunting. And, so what is that moment for you where you're this is why I do what I do?
Everything you want is on the other side of fear. And that's how I see almost everything in my life. I'm okay, put the fear aside and just go for what you want. When I graduated, I knew I wanted to work around beautiful things. And I was like you, so much of a planner and logistics based and detail oriented. And I was well, how do I tie these two together?
To the point that some of our friends are just okay, stop planning.
You guys have to stop. You're measuring out this cup. You especially are crazy with that. And so it was all about, the details, and wedding planning to me was just such an easy fit. I was okay, great. This is,
And you have such an eye for
love that. I mean, it was so my language. And it really is the biggest day of someone's life. You're not only joining together two families, you're right there front and center, zipping them up in the dress, putting the cufflinks on. I mean, you get as close as can be. And so I always associate that as the biggest day of someone's life. And with real estate, when you're talking about something as personal as, it's their biggest financial investment. And while they're two completely different things, they just have so many similarities. And when you're that front and center person that's really, really, handling every ounce of the transaction. So much, I think, of what I do is beyond just finding the home. It's really like a fulfillment, and it's a milestone situation, whether it's the first time home buyer is coming in, or, the couple that's moving in for the first. These are all major milestones, but you're right there front and center. It's a fit, and it's finding that fit, and really just and
like not wanting to disappoint that, right? Like there's a lot, like, and not that you would disappoint them, but like everybody has a different preference and taste and style. Yeah. Right. And so
it's
you
not
want to
a
make
one
them
size fits all.
Correct.
And it's a very personal.
And we're people pleasers. Right.
And that's one of the things that it's with both of our jobs. You're just sort of around the clock and you're like, okay, well, this
doesn't matter.
Yeah. Hey, you up?
Yeah, literally. I'm like, yep. Yeah. Finishing like something. Yeah.
Right. But the gratification, I think, at the end of that is just so worth it.
Hard work never disappears.
Yeah.
And looking back at all the years of training. Yeah. 7 hours a day, 6 days a week. A lot of people are like, you missed out on so much in like a childhood or just your teenage years, high school, whatever. And I'm like, it's perspective, right? It's the way you want to look at it. Like someone can feel that way, but for me, okay, yes, I didn't go to public high school and like have Friday nights, out with my high school friends, but I got to experience some of the most incredible things that I would have never experienced had it not been for gymnastics. Exactly. And traveling the world and representing the country and like just the life lessons that it taught me. And I always remember thinking, I have the rest of my life now to have sleepovers like we do with my dog Harley.
Harley's always invited.
But it's like, it's moments like that where you kind of look back and life shouldn't be easy, I think. But the moments that you spend working so hard for a goal or for a purpose, like that is something you'll never regret, you know? But going back to, my second kind of like Olympic cycle, I try to make my second Olympic team going in now as, the reigning Olympic all-around champion. And at Olympic trials, like going into that competition with all the pressure on me on my very best event, I fell flat on my face. And I remember laying there on that mat.
Which probably felt like 20 seconds.
Literally, like it was, first of all, I was confused. I'm like, why am I on the floor? I'm like looking back up on the bar and my dad, who was my coach, was standing there. The dad instinct came out and he was like, are you okay? And I was just like, yeah. But I was so embarrassed. I was so mortified. I literally wanted to crawl like underneath the podium and like walk out of the competition arena. And I knew in that moment I was not making that Olympic team. Like you don't make an Olympic team by falling on your face. And I got back up. I finished my routine. I landed on my feet knowing that routine didn't matter, right? Like my career essentially was over in that moment. As I walked off the podium, I looked around and all of a sudden there was 20,000 people on their feet. I had my first standing ovation for the worst routine of my entire life. That became the defining moment of my career in life. Because when I won the Olympic all-around gold medal, I was standing there on the podium. Sure, people were cheering and clapping and saying congratulations, but it just made me realize that we will never be defined by a gold medal, a job title, a salary, a relationship, like any of those things. people will still love and support you no matter what. And that's why it's so important to be a good person and have a good heart and find something that you truly love to do, something that you're passionate about.
Something that fuels you.
Something that fuels you.
Yeah. You falling on your face, you just described that. That to me seems like the most human experience. I mean, we fall down every day and they always say, well, it's how you pick yourself back up.
Absolutely.
To get up and to hustle and to do, you know, to have that drive, that's something that is beyond any monetary means. That's just about being, you know, your best self and really getting it out there and doing it.
And it doesn't matter what the dollar amount is. It doesn't matter. Like it's the feeling of like, you see how happy someone is.
Exactly.
Right?
It's almost like the success is so removed from the monetary side.
100%.
Being, you know, not just good at your job, great at your job. And so sort of like, well, okay, what defines that? And that is, to me at least, that's happy clients, right? That's really making someone's
life, everything.
I hate to say like life better, but yeah, if you can add some value and share that, do it. Do it great. You know, to get to the closing process and all the moving parts that come, you can be hit with, you know, 7 different transactions at once or 17 things that need revising. And it's all these logistics and you can't seem to see the end of the tunnel and there's no light. And you're like, what am I doing this for?
You're like,
you know, what is the end? And then, you know, but that's just behind the screen. That's just numbers and logistics. And then, you know, the fulfilling thing is getting to the other side of that, giving over the keys and saying, okay, we're complete. Congrats on your home. We've closed. We're there, right? Yeah. And that's the human part.
So when you sit and just reflect, because we both love doing that, what would you tell little Noora today?
Block out the noise. Literally block out everyone's opinion of what they think you should be doing, you know, all the background noise, just completely mute it and listen to you and what you want to do, because 10 out of 10 times your intuition and instinct is always spot on. And, you know, go for what you want. I always say that. Go for exactly what you want. Get after everything you want in this life. You talk about regrets all the time. You're like, oh, I regret. No. At that moment in time, that's exactly what you wanted to do. So just stick with that. And I think, you know, I love when you always say, okay, well, self-worth is not defined who thinks of me or this and that. No, it's a title that you put on yourself and it's what you assign to you.
I love that. I am similar to you, very driven to achieve that end goal.
Right. Result driven.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's like, okay, let's just like hurry, speed up the process. Yeah. And so I think, I would just tell my little self, my younger self, to be present, because, you know, the process and the journey is just as rewarding and amazing as that end result.
Exactly. I mean, you always talk about community, and you're like the #1 person who gives back. When people think about Nastia, they're like, oh my gosh, well, she's involved in this and this. And you're so selfless. How do you think that Dallas has sort of like helped you on that too?
This city has given me so much. And so it's really, and we've literally been talking about this for a while now, because it's, okay, you know, we're passionate about so many different things. Yeah. And so I think, it's super important, I know, for both of us to just find something that we love so much that we can give back. Even the last 10 years, no matter where I was living, I always came back to Dallas because it was home for the holidays. And something that I did every single year was, you know, go visit the Children's Hospital and, you know, just trying to put a smile on someone's face, which is sometimes really hard to do, you know, especially with what they could be going through, or just trying to bring them a little piece of joy or something like a stuffed animal or something, right? And the same thing with Special Olympics. Ever since I can remember, Sundays were always our day off from training, and every Sunday I would go into the gym with my mom and we would volunteer and help coach the Special Olympics. The next generation is, you know, they're our future leaders, our future doctors, our future athletes, like they're a future everything. Yeah. And I just think that that's something that I'm constantly like fueled by every single day, is to try to help inspire and motivate them to realize that they truly can be anything that they want to be.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think when we talk about giving back, we focus first on our local communities, and that's what me and you always talk about. We're like, okay, well, what
can we do in Dallas?
What can we do in Dallas? What's next? You know, just to name a few, 2x2, family fun. Those are just a few. When I moved to the States, I went to Boston College. Obviously, you know, through that, I was introduced to so many American charities, and the one that stood out for me was the Boomer Esiason Foundation that's focused on cystic fibrosis, and that's been a really big one for me to stick to. But yes, it's all about that giving back to community. We talk about success and getting to the next level, and it's like, okay, well, then you're there. So what are you going to do with all that?
Even if it's not an organization, but it's literally like advice with friends, right? Like we're both always like, okay, just like call me, like let's talk it through. And that is so like just the definition.
17 hours later.
3 dinners, 17 hours, and 2 sleepovers. Like we got to figure it out. But I think that defines, you know, what Dallas is about. And I think, you know, companies, like even it's feeling like you're part of a family. And like, that's something like, that Avondale is like, to me, it doesn't matter, that what the industry is, you know, when you finally kind of feel like you step into something and you're part of a family, like that is, it's really hard to find. And so I don't know, my advice is always like, when you find something like that, like hang on to it.
Yeah. Hang on to it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So my showing is actually around the corner from here.
Oh my God, perfect.
I know.
I have to go get Harley, let him out.
Best dog mom.
But I know we have dinner tomorrow, and like, honestly, can't wait to see what new car you show up in again. This was so fun.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Intersections, an Avondale Originals podcast for elevated conversations. If you'd like to see more from our guests and the cars featured in this episode, check out the video series on Avondale Dealerships YouTube channel. Questions, comments, or suggestions for future guests? Email us at intersections@avondale.com. Want to check out the cars from this episode and more? Visit Avondale Dealerships at avondale.com to browse our collection of luxury cars. Until the next time.